How's it going, everybody? This is the Frames and Flames podcast. My name is Brian, and I am joined by my co-host, Max. We are both fire photographers, and we look forward to an amazing show talking about all things fire photography and emergency services related. Just a quick disclaimer, this is not a professional podcast, so you may hear some sneezing or a fan, but please bear with us. Also, this podcast will contain some profane language and have some discussion topics that are not suitable for sensitive viewers. So viewer discretion is advised. With that, enjoy the show. This is the Frames and Flames podcast. Welcome to the Frames and Flames podcast. My name is Brian, and Max is sitting in his corner like I told him to.
Howdy, howdy.
Tonight, we're going to be going over our gear, what we use, why we use it, and why it's important to us, and why we think it's important to photographers as a whole. So tonight, Max, I think we're just going to kick it off with some news stories.
Let's get it.
The United States Air Force was in the news again after shooting down a third unidentified object, which, let's be honest, we probably could all tell it was probably a Chinese balloon, but they're not saying it.
I vote UFO. I think that's just more fun.
Why would they shoot down the UFO, though? Like, they would capture that shit and take it and test it.
Hey, I stand by what I said.
Okay. So now the F-22 Raptor has its third air-to-air kill in its existence. Keep in mind that this aircraft has been around for over 20 years.
You know, for reasons.
Unfortunately, some sad news. The earthquake in Turkey has caused over 11,000 deaths. Urban search and rescue task forces from around the world, including those from England, Scotland, the United States, France, and I think Canada, are over there right now helping with the recovery and the rescue of any survivors and the recovery of any remains. Let's see what else is in the news that isn't terrible.
Well, there's New Meadow, the hazmat response. That's local, at least.
Yeah, there's that Idaho news. There was a large hazmat response in New Meadows. 12,000 gallon propane tanker overturned and ruptured. And firefighters have been there. Firefighters from the Region 3 hazmat team from Boise and Caldwell have been there for 3 days, I think.
And it's been one crew working.
Propane off. Just the one crew?
Yep.
As far as national news, holy shit.
Oh?
I just scrolled down more on CNN. I was way off on those death numbers.
Talk about Turkey?
28,000.
Dang.
Wow.
Dang. That's, yeah.
That is insane. Well, that's terrible.
For lack of a better term, that's a bummer.
Let's try to get this back on a more positive. Again, our hearts go out to the nations of Turkey and Syria and to all the people that are there helping out and aiding in the recovery efforts. We have a saying in the fire service when we see the brothers go to a job, and we say, "Go get them, brothers." I think that saying is warranted here, especially given that this is probably one of the biggest rescues ever conducted at one time. Our last news story of the evening before we get into our usual bullshittery is something that I guarantee you nobody thought about. Max, when was the last time you saw a Blockbuster?
Oh God, years. Well, I mean, there's the one in Oregon, right? That's
when was the last time you saw one?
Oh, I have not seen one in person in ages.
So, those of you that don't know, there is one Blockbuster Video left in the world. It is in Bend, Oregon. It is still open, still operating, still renting DVDs.
Their whole shtick is being the last one open, though. It's turned
streaming services exist.
Yeah.
I got like 7 on my phone.
It's the whole nostalgia thing. I've seen I think they have like an Instagram or something, and their whole shtick is just we're the last Blockbuster in existence. And
no, I mean, hey, I'm not going to fault them. Like, I would love to go up there and rent a movie. Like, that was my childhood. So the funny part about this news is they have an ad timed for the Super Bowl tomorrow.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's kind of crazy.
Huh.
I kind of want to watch. I'm gonna watch Super Bowl tomorrow with my family, but
Yeah.
I kind of want to watch it just for that commercial, just to
I'm
see what
curious, like,
marketing they
yeah,
have.
how? Like, hey, all you youngins, we're old. Remember DVDs?
That haven't existed since before you were
Yeah,
born.
yeah.
Well, technically they still exist, just no one uses them.
Eh,
Oh, another big news is regarding the Super Bowl. The flyover this year is going to be all female pilots.
That's cool.
Yeah, that is kind of cool. Rest of the news, let's see. Chick-fil-A, lame.
What about Chick-fil-A?
Something to do with a new sandwich not being chicken. Apparently that's on CNN for some reason.
I don't know.
North Korea, Ukraine, Harvey Weinstein.
That's a name I haven't heard in a while.
He's getting sued by the chick he was convicted of raping.
Good.
Good for her.
Just
Fuck that
gonna,
guy.
yeah, I'm just gonna go out on a limb and say good, objectively.
Let's see. Politics. Random photo of an owl that I don't understand why that is on CNN.
Who?
An owl.
Who?
A bird. Fuck you. Apparently the 10 best women's running shoes is on CNN.
I don't have a bit for that one. It's just okay.
I don't either. I'm just kind of confused as to why that's on the front page of CNN. I mean, hey,
Yeah.
getting good running shoes is a big deal, but why it's on
Yeah.
the front page of an international news organization?
How to tell that we're running out of news.
Yeah, if it's not Donald Trump or Joe Biden or somebody died, like there's really nothing on the news these days. Like nobody really,
Shoes.
apparently shoes, but
Shoes.
like the war in Ukraine's not getting covered anymore.
No, that is burned up. It ran its course.
Yeah. No, that's lame.
Actually, I have a bit of news that we can end things off with for the news segment.
All right, let's end our news segment with news from Max. I'm going to let him speak from his corner.
All right, I'm officially stepping out of the corner for a second. As of today, because we're recording this late, this is also a plug, so I'm going to go into Salesman Max mode. I've officially released.
Plug.
I've officially released merch. I will be shameless about it. 1076media.com. You want to pick up? Oh, he's beeping me out. It's all fun and games until I can just edit it.
You can try. That
Oh,
was a pretty
believe
long
me.
bleep.
Separate
Okay, I'll let
audio
you go again
tracks.
now.
Separate audio tracks. He forgets that I edit these things. Anyway, if you want to pick up some super sweet merch, 1076media.com. Help support me and my project. So we got stickers, shirts, prints, all sorts of fun stuff. If you're a fan of my work or just want some cool art, check it out. Shameless plug ending.
I will say Max's stickers are pretty good quality. I have one on the lid of my toolbox. It's crooked, and Max gives me shit about that. But so
we got the
all
new
of my
Smoke
stickers
Eaters
on the
designs. So we got logo
didn't
stuff
know.
and this super sweet design. You can also get it on the back of a shirt if you're into that.
Send me one of those stickers, dude.
Just give you a care package at Mayhem, which
Ooh.
March Mayhem. I think there's some spots left. Maybe for some
There's got to be like
stuff.
3 or 4
Like
spots
it's
left for the
getting tight.
lectures.
If you're not there, be there or be square.
There's no live fire left. I think the Elkhart might be sold out. If we talk to Gino later, we'll ask him.
Yeah.
I know some
getting
elections
closer
might
and
have
closer to that. So
a couple spots left. He's pissed at me right now.
oh boy.
Because I was like, hey, my dad, he asked, he goes, hey, do you know where we can get like a pallet of water and a pallet of Gatorade? But you can't do it. I was like, okay. So I reached out to people in my dad's circles. Otherwise, I just asked my dad.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, Gino, we got an anonymous donor. They said they wanted to say thank you for your service. And he goes, who was it? And I'm like, I'm not telling you. He goes, was it your dad? I was like, maybe. And he goes, you motherfucker.
So, hey, we're drinking good at Mayhem.
And I said, you just specified it didn't have to be me. You didn't specify how many Brian Bonners I couldn't ask.
It would have been different if he specifically said Brian Bonner cannot donate. But
yeah, because there's more than one of us.
Yeah, the whole cloning machine.
Yeah, I mean, I was just gonna ask fucking my dad's family anyways. I got a lot of rich family members be like, hey, I need this. Christ. How much? $700. Okay.
Either way, thanks to that, we're gonna be drinking good at Mayhem. So,
dude, $700
hydrated
up. 1,290 bottles of water on Amazon.
You bought them on Amazon?
Yeah, a whole ass pallet.
How is okay? So like,
I don't know how the fuck that worked, but it did.
where is it being delivered to?
So I haven't bought it yet,
Okay, I was gonna say
but I'm
like I'm
gonna
just
buy it.
expecting like Saturday morning the Amazon truck rolls up to Nampa's campus, just like
Yeah, it's gonna go to the Nampa Training Center the week
yeah,
of the 20th. I think I'll probably order it on like the 18th
yeah,
because the Amazon Center's right there in Nampa, so they'll probably have it fairly quickly.
yeah. Well, I mean it's water, you know.
Yeah, and then a pallet of Gatorade, dude. The whole thing is a tax write-off.
That's true. That is
School is
very
a
true.
501c3.
That is
So I
very
told my
true.
dad, I was like, Dad, tax write-off. He goes, oh, sweet, tax write-off. Fuck taxes. Fuck the
Yeah.
government.
Yeah. Hey, at least I'm getting money back this time.
The views and opinions expressed by Brian during his rants is not the official views of 760 Fire Photography.
Yeah. Anyway, taxes and shit. So gear. We're talking about gear. Gonna be diving into the stuff we use, why we use it. And it is important to note, I think we both agreed, and we've talked about this before. We
Hey, while
shoot
you're talking, I'm going to
differently.
stand up really quick and change the battery in my radio and turn
Yeah,
my fan on.
sweet. So we use different gear, and we're very public about that. We also do that because we shoot different styles of content. So Brian is more artistically photography based, and I'm definitely more video based. Started out as news, and you guys know how that's going. Um, Switching away from the news side, going to a whole different thing. So we use different pieces of gear, and when we talk about the gear that we use, it is not the God, beer burps. It is not the end all be all of what you can and can't use. There are obviously ups and downs to every piece of gear that you have. It's also really funny to watch him in the window reflection. It's entertaining. Um, but yeah, so we use different pieces of gear. Our recommendations and what we talk about are what works well for us in our scenarios. I know there's stuff that I personally use now that I want to change up in the future. So it's not the end all be all when it comes to gear. And
Switch the
also,
cannon.
no,
Master Race.
that is absolutely not true. It's also
I
important to
bet.
say, no, I will stick by my Sonys. Um, we might not explicitly say what exact products we use in this episode, but we're just going to talk about conceptually a lot of stuff. So just because we use it doesn't mean it's absolutely the best thing out there. And just do your research when it comes to gear. But with that little disclaimer out of the way, where do we want to start?
I want to start with comms because that's the least amount of shit we carry.
Yeah.
Considering how much camera equipment and safety gear we carry.
Yeah.
As far as comms, I'm going to use specific product names because I know a lot of people can't afford this, and I somehow got this as cheap as I did.
Yep.
I use the Motorola APX 6000 XE. I have two of them.
And that is the traditional, like that is a legitimate radio for those that don't know it.
Yes. These are traditional radios. I can transmit on them. I can also not transmit on them. Some of the zones are programmed to where I will not be able to transmit at all, just for the reason being of I don't want to be transmitting on dispatch or TAC channels at an incident just accidentally. Like, I don't want to have something, my knife slide back and click the transmit button while it's hanging on my belt.
Yeah.
So
not to mention
essentially,
there's times where you can't, where you're legally not allowed to. So
there's a lot of times, like I'd say about 90% of times you cannot transmit. I do have zones though on here that these radios can talk to each other. So if Max and I, when we're at Mayhem, I'm going to let Max use one and we're going to be able to talk to each other outside of the training banks. So we're not clogging up that channel talking to each other about photography stuff. These radios are great. They're very expensive. They run about $3,000 a piece brand new. I got them for stupid cheap. Had the programming done by a company in Florida. I'm not going to name names because I don't want people who have no business having this kind of stuff.
it is a professional grade tool. And that's the other thing is that for us, these are physical tools. You know, it's the same as a carpenter with a hammer, you know.
Like, they're not
that is
toys.
the tools of our yeah.
With that, as far as my comms go, that's about it. Other than the scanner apps on my phone that I use for backups when stuff goes down and stuff like that, I will defer to Max to let you guys know what he uses.
So again, a perfect example of us doing things differently, based on the nature of where we are and what we shoot. I use legitimate scanners. This is like again, very, very top of the line. This is made by Uniden. It is the best handheld digital scanner you can get on the market. Um,
Ooh,
and I'm not
ah,
saying that to flex. I'm saying that because it has a very specific set of features that is what I require, and there are certain channels that just about only this scanner can pick up. So
yeah,
it's
like
again
okay.
very specialized piece of equipment. For those of you that are just starting out and you're in an area you don't know much about the radios and the radio frequencies and that kind of stuff, there's a wonderful, wonderful website called Radio Reference. And I highly suggest if you're thinking of doing any of this stuff on your own, which I myself, I'm the type of person, I like to have my hands in the middle of stuff as much as I can. So when I bought this scanner, I did the programming and stuff myself. So go to Radio Reference. You can look up by your area and your zip code the type of channels and stuff. And before you even buy a scanner, the super nice thing about Radio Reference is it'll tell you what kind of frequencies they are. So whether it's digital or analog, whether the big thing, whether they're encrypted or not. So around here, for example, there's a lot of encrypted stuff. So all of Canyon County's PD side, so Canyon County Sheriff, Caldwell PD, Nampa PD, all that stuff, county-wide is encrypted. So you cannot listen to any law enforcement channels in Canyon County. Ada County, a couple of the talk around channels, couple of the interagency channels, and the primary Ada County and Boise City dispatch channels are unencrypted, but everything else is encrypted. So go to Radio Reference, look up whether you can and can't actually listen to stuff. And then from there, the more research you start doing, you can start to figure out what kind of channels they are, what type of systems they are. And then you can figure out what kind of scanner you need to pick up or what kind of radio you need to pick up. Because there's some cases where, like the Motorola's that Brian has, they won't work with certain channels here, and vice versa. So a lot of times, if you're in an area other than Idaho, I'm just going to say you might be able to get away with a little bit less of a scanner and not need this thing. Because again, as far as scanners go, it is top of the line and it comes with a top of the line price tag. But you can find stuff that is suited to your use case. So just
And
do
one
your
thing I
research.
recommend, especially with the Motorola's, is having these professionally programmed. Because these can transmit in their baser functions, it becomes very easy to get onto a channel that is in the clear and you can transmit on. And the departments will see, hey, that's not one of our radios.
Yep.
And they will brick the radio, and it will no longer function.
Yeah.
So you just wasted $3,000. So that kind of programming is called NAS programming, and only there's very few people in this country that can do it and do it well.
Yeah, and I'm gonna say if you go that route, which that is something that I'm looking forward to or looking at in the future, because again, there's different use case stuff. Um, with those radios, I mean, it is a radio first. You're with the programming that you've done, you've pretty much in most cases turned it into a scanner. But with the functions of a radio, you can physically jump channels and that kind of stuff. Whereas with this, I have it set up, which I have a couple other scanners as well, but with this one in particular, I'm just using this example because it's my newest and kind of flagship, if you want to call it that. I have it set up so I can be scanning multiple frequencies. So I can be listening to the PD side, the fire side, different TAC channels and that stuff, which you
And that's why I
can't
have
do on
my
yours.
zones. Well, I can because my zones are set up with fire, or law dispatch, the different tax
Can
that
you
I can't
scan
listen.
them at the same, can you listen to multiple at the same time?
Yep, zone scan.
Okay.
So I
Yeah,
have my
so
zones set up. So when I went on a radio reference with my programmer and I picked what I wanted, I was like, hey, this is what I want in these zones. The really cool thing about the Motorola is it can have 16,000 talk groups on it. So I can have as many zones as I want.
yeah.
Um, so I have my zone set up. I have Mesa County, Colorado in here. I have Ada County. I have Canyon County. I have the P25 TAC group that my radios can talk to each other. Oh, shit. Never mind. Hang on one second. Weep. And then I have Bryan County in Georgia, where my sister lives.
Yeah, so just do your research when it comes to radios. Find out a lot of the different models. It's not necessarily like going to buy a car where they all have four wheels and drive. With radios and scanners, there's a lot of different stuff that does different things because the physical radio systems work differently. So my recommendation is do your research, find out what your options are to begin with, and then figure out what you want to do. For us at least, it is arguably one of the most important pieces of equipment we have. Because at least I cannot do what I do without a scanner or a radio, uh, by the nature of we physically can't get to calls or hear information. Um, as far as a free tool, I think we can talk about Pulse Point in the style of comms. For those that don't know Pulse Point, it's a system that I believe agencies opt into.
They do. They
I
opt to use it
Yeah.
when you subscribe to it.
Um, and basically it gives you a live feed of calls going on. So you basically can subscribe to your agencies on the app. So for example, Access, which is the Ada County countywide EMS and fire. You
Ada
can do the
County
same with
City
county.
Emergency Services System.
Yes, what he said. Um, so you can go on subscribe to that, and then it'll show you all the calls, the apparatus, basically, um, all of the publicly accessible information that's not sensitive, like HIPAA violation stuff. All of the open to the public information regarding calls that you can see. The caveat to that is sometimes it's delayed. Sometimes it is not always accurate. And the biggest thing is that it does not show call notes or anything like that. So Pulse Point might say structure fire and show the responding units, but on our radios, we're hearing what the dispatchers are saying. So they're going to tone out all the apparatus, and then at the same time, they will give information, 2-story single family house, nothing showing, you know, send the units. We can hear that size up and decide, is this something we're going to go to or not? Whereas on Pulse Point, it just says structure fire. So you're more limited on the information, but it's a free tool. So if you're just starting out, use it. And that's something that I will look at all the time. I know you look at all the time, and even firefighters look at it all the time.
Hell,
Um,
Gino gets
yeah,
notifications from Pulse Point before he gets tones.
yeah. Because it is based off of the dispatch call. So before apparatus are even assigned, you see that. But sometimes just by nature of the internet, sometimes there is a delay on that. And I should also say it is only for fire and EMS. There is no PD equivalent of that. So that's Pulse Point.
Not yet.
Yeah, not yet. I don't think there will ever be. Um,
I think there might be that PDs would put out personally.
yeah,
Uh, like, hey, Boise PD, there's a bunch of domestics, but they're not gonna say where or what.
yeah. They have like the end of the year crime statistics and stuff, but
They don't have it on an app that says, hey, this is what Boise PD is doing tonight. There's
yeah.
domestic, car crash, so on. But they're not gonna give addresses, numbers of units on there.
Mm-mm.
They wouldn't do that.
It's just at that point, it's kind of an officer safety issue.
It is.
Um,
Um,
but I think as far as
so
communications, unless you had anything else to say, I was gonna say
as
scanner
far as
apps.
comms, scanner apps, I have a little radio walkie-talkie app that I can talk to you or Gino on if I have to.
Yeah. Um, in Ada County, as of now, scanner apps aren't really the best because a lot of the web feeds are down. Which is again another reason why physical devices such as a scanner or a radio are so important, because there aren't a lot of live web feeds in the area. Some areas might have them, some areas might not. A year ago, you could listen to a lot in the county, but over time they've been taken offline. So and that's I think that a lot of that is up to the individual user, not necessarily a department requesting that it be taken down. Because again, stuff
Yeah.
like Pulse Point
And the
exists.
reason I picked Motorola's over the unit in scanners, because I had scanners when I worked back in San Diego. I had the Whistler TRX1 back then, which they don't even use anymore. Fuck, I'm old. Um, sorry, I'm listening to tax while we're doing this. The reason I use Motorola is because that's what I'm used to as a first responder. Motorola is the primary. I don't really think anybody uses anything else.
No, a lot of law enforcement use Motorola as well. It's just they are the big name in radio communication.
Bendix makes the wildland radios for the U.S. Forest Service, a lot of the municipal departments. But Motorola they are the guys.
Yeah. They
When it
do it
comes to
right, and they've done it
radios.
right for a long time.
They have great customer service. I had something start working weird on my radio. I called them and I was like, hey, this is my serial number. Can you guys send me this part? They're like, send us a radio. We'll fix it for you. I was like, sweet. They sent
Yeah.
it back 2 weeks later like it was brand new.
Yeah. Like I said, those actual NAS programmed radios, something that I'm looking at in the future. It has different use cases. I
I'll
personally,
tell you where to get them if you end up doing a NAS program.
yeah.
My
I
guy is
I
the shit.
personally don't want to do that as my primary device. That's why I ended up settling on the Uniden scanners. That's something that I in particular wanted as my main daily driver, so to speak. But I have noticed, which I think is going to be a theme that we end up talking about a lot with all of the gear, is the more you use it, the more you start to see things where you want something else or you like it here over some things. The more you use it, the more you notice stuff. So there are situations where I would prefer to have a radio, but for 90% of the time, I am super happy with these
I
Unidens.
mean, that high end scanner is going to do the same thing this radio can, except it's not going to be able to transmit or be programmed to transmit in any way.
Yeah. That is the nice thing, is that out of the box, that thing you don't have to worry about frequencies or hot miking or getting in legal trouble with the FCC. Because again, when we say do your research, part of that includes looking up what you can and can't do on certain radio channels.
And reach out
Because
to your local agencies like, hey,
yeah,
I do this. I want to start scanning. I have a radio that can be programmed to do so. I'm going to NAS program it so it can't transmit. Is there any channels that you guys would not recommend having on there based on legal standards? And they'll tell you, they'll be straight
yeah,
up. They'll be like, hey, you can monitor our dispatch channels. We request you don't monitor any of their open channels just to keep our officers or our personnel's privacy. Like
yeah,
they'll be straight with you. They were when I called and asked, they were super cool.
yeah. I'm gonna say too, 90% of departments that are using like P25 digital systems, which if you don't know what that means, don't worry. Again, go to radio reference, start there. But a lot of the departments that are using digital systems probably have those sensitive channels encrypted already, so you don't even have to worry about that. Don't try to decrypt them. It's very difficult, but in some cases it is possible. Do not do that. I am saying right now, don't do it.
That
I
is a
don't do it.
felony.
That is, yeah, it's a felony. The FCC will come hard for you. You don't want to do that. That's bad news
Might
bears.
have a knock on your door at 3 o'clock in the morning from the Alphabet Boys if you start doing some sketchy
Yeah,
shit like that.
yeah. It is a felonious crime to do that. But a lot of the agencies, like specific to my area at least, if I were to ask them, chances are the stuff that they said they're fine with me listening to is what is publicly open and non-encrypted anyway. So just
Yeah,
check radio reference. At the very least, you'll get some info, you'll get some knowledge, and that's a fantastic place to start.
yeah. As far as comms, that's about it. I'm gonna move on to headgear because I have mine sitting next to me.
Yep.
You don't.
Long fucking story.
I can't wait for you to hear. I can't wait for you guys to hear that one.
Yeah, we'll get
So
to there
headgear
eventually.
wise, I think because Max might be doing video for this one.
Yeah.
I am going to go into specific products because this is another very dependent on you, very dependent on your area, very dependent on what works best and what fits you best. I have the Bullard UST 6. It's a traditional looking fire helmet with the standard Burks eye shields. Some of you might ask, why the hell do you need those? It's a look, to be 100% honest. With a custom shield from Taylor's Tins. Taylor, great dude, great prices.
100% back him. As you guys can see, I have mine sitting right there as well. Fortunately, it's not on a helmet yet.
Why Max doesn't have his helmet yet. I also have a Streamlight. I think this is the Streamlight Vantage 2. This is going to blind you guys for a second. How bright this light is.
It is a traditional kind of firefighter helmet setup.
Yeah, and then I have the Onyx Firecam 4K. So this is just something for me that I can put into reels and stuff like that. That it shows, it's wide enough to where it shows my camera coming up in front of the helmet and me shooting whatever's going on. I personalized the helmet a little bit with some stickers on the inside. I love my Elkhart Brass Boys Stash Salt mustache wax because, as you guys can tell, I have a mustache. I just went to the barber and got it all cleaned up because it was starting to look kind of scraggly.
I don't
Um,
know anything about that.
the Scottish flag because my family is Scottish and Irish. I have the Irish flag somewhere. I think it ripped and I had to take it off. And then the Treasure Valley Fools sticker because Gino, my boy, he kind of got me in the door in Idaho, and I figured that was on there. Also, I have a Streamlight helmet band that I can stick door wedge stuff like that in if I ever need it. Underneath that band, I have the FDNY 343 sticker with my mom's side of the family being from upstate New York. That affected people that I know. And it affected the fire service as a whole. So being a part of the fire service, fire and EMS service, I should say, because I'm not a fireman yet, is a big deal. It's got my last name on the back. So if I'm looking up at something and somebody's behind me and doesn't see the camera or whatnot, oh, dude, maybe in a second, I should go. While you're talking about your headgear, I should go down and get my vest
Yeah, if you want.
out of the locker.
We can also
People
just
can,
talk about it if we want.
yeah.
Um,
And then after that, the helmet's not really that special. I'm getting a custom leather chin strap for mine from a local guy who's recovering from back surgery. Figured I would support him and get a chin strap. Figured it'd be cool.
yeah. As far as helmets go, I'm actually a, it's a super long story. And I pretty much every situation where something could go wrong, it has in this
Because
process.
you didn't listen to me.
Whatever. Um, but I actually am getting the same helmet, um, partially because it's for the money, it's a fantastic helmet. It is not as expensive as other options, and you're also getting decent quality. You're not getting something that's gonna fall apart on you or just not do a good job of protecting your noggin. Um, and this is something I will just go out and say, not every photographer needs a helmet, especially a structural helmet. But speaking for the two of us, we are in situations where we can strongly benefit from them or also are required to have them, because again the training scenarios and the different events that Brian and I are able to attend, um, those are situations where we use them the most. And I will say maybe 5% of incidents that I go on I could benefit from having a helmet on.
The
um
only reason I have one structural helmet for incidents is because I was asked by Caldwell Fire, "Hey, can you wear one
yeah,
if you're going to be as close as you would like to be? Just
yeah,
for your safety, for our reliability, can you wear one that clearly identifies who you are, and so we
yeah.
don't so somebody that doesn't know you doesn't be like, hey, grab this because you can't do that."
Yeah. I don't think it's something that's absolutely required by every photographer, but
Except on wild end fires, always
yes,
wear a helmet, especially if
yeah,
there are air tankers working in the area.
I'm specific to structural helmets and these types of brain lids. Specifically structural stuff, I don't think every photographer needs one. But
Not at all.
again, in scenarios where for us in these training events and different things that we go to and are invited out to, some training grounds require that you have them. Or, if you're in the training tower, anything like that, it's a requirement, or it's just good common courtesy for us when we are that close using them. So as far as helmets, not absolutely required, but again, we both use them. I have one on the way, so I can't say I have one right now, but
Had one
it
on, and then it
yeah,
got there to get another
it's
one.
Jesus Christ, yeah. They're good to have when you need one. And I'm gonna say if you are in with an agency or a department that has brought you in and you work closely with them, especially if you're at a lot of training stuff, good idea to get one. I think I am the type of person like err on the side of caution if you're going to be doing that. If not, just don't get as close.
Or
Don't be in
ask.
situations. Yeah, yeah,
Like for us, Gino even said, he goes, "You guys don't have to wear helmets. I would recommend you wear them
yeah,
at our fools trainings because there is stuff moving around and you guys are in the training towers." He's like, "I would recommend you wear them, but you don't have to."
yeah. The other thing, though, from our perspectives as ambassadors of a brand and as business owners, it is a little bit of advertisement, and it makes us look a little bit more professional, as opposed to Joe Schmo walking up with nothing. If you have a helmet, you have a good looking lid. Um, It's just that much more branding, and it's identification. So if you're somewhere and you have it on, people see it, they know it's you, that kind of deal.
Yeah.
Wildland especially, wear a helmet. If you are doing any sort of wildland gear or any sort of wildland shooting, have all of the gear. Those are situations where
Yellows,
I
boots, wildland pants, fire pack with a shelter, helmet, radio.
Yeah. I personally have never shot a wildland fire. I've shot wildland urban interface, but that is not the same as me going out into the forest or wherever and shooting a big ripper. I don't have the gear personally. I also, it's not that big of a thing around here, that type of fire. So I have not invested in that yet. Maybe I will down the road, so I have that option. But if there was one going right now, I would not run it in the middle of it because I don't have that gear and I'm not comfortable doing it. You obviously have the gear, Brian, and you have some experience with larger wildland fires. Um, Again, that's kind of the area. And just,
Yeah, it's SoCal. It's always
yeah,
on fire.
yeah, build your kit out depending on what you're going to be shooting. I think that's a very safe
Like
statement to say.
if you're shooting fires, you don't need to be wearing body armor. Hint, hint. Some stringers out there, you don't need that.
Okay, some stringers, not professional
There are
stringers.
incidents in which body armor would be appropriate,
Yep,
but you do not need armor to shoot a structure fire
yeah,
ever. Because
don't
if there
be a
is any
clown.
kind of ammunition in the fire going off, they are not going to let you within a rock's throw of that fire.
Yeah, you just look like a tool at that point. On the topic of body armor, that is something that I am looking at because I do shoot more law enforcement stuff, and I don't want to say too much, but I will be in situations in the future where it's a good idea to have them or have some.
I have
So
armor, but not
yeah,
for this.
there are scenarios where it's good to have it, but again, I will say not an absolute priority to have, especially when you're first starting out and you don't have a ton of money to throw into it. Don't worry about armor. Um, if all you shoot is like super hot PD calls, maybe prioritize that. But, if you're an all-around emergency photographer, I wouldn't necessarily worry about it. Um, what else? While we're on the topic of safety gear, another big thing for me, which is one of the first pieces of gear I actually picked up, is a traffic vest. If you are anywhere near a road or
Something reflective,
highway,
traffic
yeah,
vest.
something reflective. You can get super basic like ANSI class 3 vests on Amazon for like 10-15 bucks. Something with
I wear the Metro Fire Photographer's vest from the Vest Guy. It's got reflective. I know Max is buying one.
yep,
As far
uh,
as safety equipment, another big thing is longevity health. Like carrying camera equipment around can be hard on your back, on your shoulders, and
yeah,
on your neck. So I bought that vest based on the recommendations of some other photographers that I know. Um, it has really good padded shoulders and load bearing straps. And my cameras, as we're going to get into the camera equipment, they're heavy.
yeah.
So it's very much that is a safety part. I'm going into the reflective thing. I mean, get something reflective. It's not hard.
Yeah, like I
Uh,
said, you can get those vests super cheap. The first one I ever got was on Amazon. It was pretty cheap. Obviously, you get what you pay for, so the quality might not be the best on some of those cheaper ones, but it is a really good idea to have something reflective. And specifically, I'm going to say ANSI Class 3. That's ANSI Class 3. That is a safety measurement or a classification um, that that's kind of the standard. So get something like that. You can get them on Amazon for super cheap. If you're anywhere near a road or a highway, it's a good idea to have that. Or also, if you're at night, uh, if you're shooting at night, it can be again an added level of safety and added level of visibility. Because the last thing you want to do is sneak up on a scene and surprise somebody. You don't want to be the most noticeable guy around, or you don't want to be stealing the spotlight, as we've talked about before. But you don't need to be an absolute ninja sneaking around and surprising people. So get a traffic vest, especially if you're in the road, that kind of stuff.
Also, don't be in the road if you don't have to. A shot is not worth your life.
Correct.
I have seen people who have been hit by cars. It is not pretty. It does not end well.
Yeah.
But just
And this is stuff that we've also talked about before. Um, on that note, and on the topic of being in roads, I personally don't like shooting freeway stuff. because it's one of those risk versus rewards. Um,
Don't shoot freeway stuff.
yeah, it especially in Idaho, it's a totally different beast than places like Southern California.
Unless that roadway is completely shut down, I will
Yeah,
not be on that roadway with my camera.
yep,
And that's
I'm the same way.
specifically speaking to interstates. Surface streets, people go a little slower, a little bit different.
Yeah,
But
freeways, it's
you
a
getting
whole
hit
different
at
beast.
5 miles an hour versus 90 miles an hour
Yeah,
are going to have two very different effects on your body. And that is coming
yeah,
from a nationally certified emergency medical technician.
that is legal advice. Don't
No, it's
get
not.
jellied.
I am not a lawyer.
Don't get yourself jellied on the side of the road. Don't
Yeah,
do it.
because I don't want to have to explain to someone why you're dead. Two, it's kind of messy. And three, you probably don't want to be a paraplegic or on a ventilator and granted, there are people who have walked away from getting hit very, very hard by
Being a
cars,
little hyperbolic here.
but I'm being worst casey because I know what happens when people get hit by cars
Yeah,
and the results are usually not pretty.
yeah, not a good idea.
So if you have no business being on that roadway and there is no safe place for you to be near the roadway, just leave. No
Yeah,
sense in you getting hurt or risking yourself for no reason.
yeah. I think another good piece of gear while we're kind of on the topic of safety gear is good clothing. I would invest in a good jacket is my recommendation. I have a soft shell, almost like a patrol jacket that I wear a lot. I really like it. Um, Pretty good. Have stuff that's comfy, that's gonna keep you safe. If
I have
you're
my
in
511 job shirt and my winter rain jacket.
Yeah. If you are doing, I'm just gonna say like wear appropriate clothing. This is somebody coming from somebody who wears jeans and Vans most of the time when I'm out shooting. But for my use case, I am usually in more urban or suburban areas. If you're somewhere that is having a lot of water or you're in a more wilderness area, get some good boots. A lot of times I'll carry boots with me, so if I need to, I can change into them, or have some more like wildland pants, that kind of thing. But I don't wear it all the time because it's just not appropriate 90% of the time. It's more comfortable being in, Vans and jeans for me. Um, just get stuff that works.
Yeah, like for me, I always have. I mean, I'm usually in jeans and cowboy boots because that's what I wear every day.
Yeah.
But when I'm on training events or I'm at larger incidents, I'm usually in my hikes, EMS wildland boots that I wear at work, and
Hikes are good
511 grip
stuff.
stops. They're heavy, but they work.
Yeah, I have
Um,
a pair of 511 boots, so
the 511, like the Haleycom patrols, are really nice. I've had those in the past. They were really great. They supported me well. Another big thing for gear is identifying gear, especially if you run
yep,
your own company.
yep.
Now, making up a name and starting an Instagram is not a company. Um, People with companies sometimes are LLCs or Incs. I am not one. I don't know if Max is one.
Nope. I have
But
a
websites.
DBA filed, so I am a legal entity, but I am not an LLC or anything like that. Maybe down the
My
road.
name is copyrighted, but that's about it.
Yeah,
Identifying, like as you guys can see, I am in my polo. It's got my
I'm
logo, my
wearing
name,
yeah,
title, and just because I'm that guy, Merca.
yeah. It's good to have that kind of stuff. Obviously, I'm wearing merch. I'm trying not to plug this right now. That's one of the merch designs I have, but I also have gear that is just my logo front and back. Um, Obviously, like I'm gonna have hats in the future. We have our helmet shields, have patches. My traffic vest is actually now branded with my logo. We've
Printed
talked
on there
about
finally.
Yeah, I got it on when I started doing the other printing for the shirts and stuff.
Nice.
Um, it looks actually really good. Um, but another thing we've talked about is if you have this is a huge thing. If you have a legitimate press pass, have that out and identifiable. If you don't, again, I'm in an area, you're in an area where these agencies don't do press accreditations. So I have a business card out. I have a lanyard with a holder, so it's still an identifiable feature of me. It's not actual press credentials, and it's not trying to be press credentials, because don't go down that road of trying to falsify stuff. That's
That's also
also,
a felony.
yeah, don't do that. But I have, if anybody's ever seen me on calls anywhere, I have that lanyard and it's identifiable. It has my name, the company, my contact information there. So it's identifiable to me. I also keep business cards in there. So you just pull a card out, easy to go, but be identifiable. So especially when you start to build up your brand identity and you have some weight behind your name, people see that and say, oh, sweet, that's Max over there with 1076, or oh, I know that guy. Hopefully you have a good reputation going, so people are fine with you being around. That's just part of brand
I have
identity.
a legitimate press credential issued by the
Yep.
city of San Diego Police Department because in San Diego, it's not required, but it's recommended that you apply for one so they know who you are.
Yep.
If something happens or if they find the press pass or something like that. In my press holder, I carry business cards. I carry a photocopy of my driver's license. So if a law enforcement officer says, hey, stop, need your ID, I don't have to go reach in my pockets and stuff like that.
It's
I
right
carry a
there.
copy of my NREMT in there. So if, let's say, I'm on a scene and I see somebody get drilled by a car because the firemen are working somebody else in some looky-loo, and I go to render aid because I am required by law to do so. If somebody walks up and says, hey, what are you doing? You're a photographer. You're not an EMT. I can pull my NREMT card out and say, hey, yes, I am. Here's my license number, et cetera, et cetera. That's pretty much as far as safety and identifying equipment goes. As far as I can
You don't
think.
need to go over the top, but like we were talking about with radios, and again, this will be an underlying theme everywhere we go with this episode. Build it out to your needs. Obviously I haven't dropped a bunch of money on wildland gear because I don't shoot wildland fires. You just don't need to. Build out your gear to what you want to shoot and what you can shoot. Go from there. Does not need to
Yeah.
be big and fancy.
Now it's camera gear. This is where Max and I were going to violently disagree on most things.
Yep, we've been pretty.
I'm right and he's wrong.
Oh, shut up.
No, I am not shutting up. Canon is better.
For what you do.
No, just in general.
Okay. If you haven't figured out by now, he's a little Canon fanboy, and
Yeah,
I
I
shoot
use
Sony.
Canon. So I use the Canon EOS R6. I mean, this is not a really proprietary thing. You can find these. You can find this shit on Amazon.
Yeah.
I am one of those people that tends to stick to one singular brand of lenses. Because Max does more of the video side. He uses a little different types of lenses. He might use this stick to the brand method. I use the Sigma lens brand. They make a phenomenal product. They are superb quality. They're very durable.
I have shot with some Sigma, and it is really good glass. I will say that much.
And I'm a firearms collector as well, so I'm kind of picky about my glass. Max has heard me rant for hours about how durable glass is. Like that. Remember how mad I was when that one chip in my 2470?
Yep.
Dude, I was so pissed about that.
Yeah.
But Sigma's a great product. I use the mirrorless cameras. I used mirrored for a very long time. I think the mirrorless gives you a little bit more clear of a picture. The overall quality of the image doesn't really change.
It's if anything, it's just a little bit sharper, and you might be
I think
that
the mirrorless
much better at night.
Is a little more durable as far as a camera as a whole goes, and it gives you a little more sharper of an image. You can do a little bit more with it. So I prefer Canon, and this is a big thing, like we've said all night. Do what works best for you. Just don't buy Nikon.
I will
be friends with us if you buy Sony or Canon, but if you run Nikon, no, you cannot sit with us.
When it comes to the physical camera body and lenses, do your research. Again, know what you want to shoot, because there's a lot of different stuff out there. Also different price points. You don't need a top of the line camera, especially to start out. Just get something that works for you.
The Canon EOS Rebels are great starter.
Yeah.
Especially for those that have an interest in buffing, because at the baser level, that's what we do.
Yeah. For those, do you want to explain that term for those that don't know?
Buffing, every kid wants to be a firefighter or a police officer or some crazy shit when they grow up. They love looking at trucks. They love looking at, and some people like to do that into adulthood. The Tacoma Fire Buff Battalion is a perfect example. They went from just recording incidents to now they respond as a part of the Tacoma Fire Department with an old decommissioned ambulance as a rehab unit. That's a great example of how buffing can be used as a positive factor. Buffing
Even
is
like
just
Eric
awesome.
Hurst, the main PIO for South Metro,
Yeah. Well, he was a
started out
firefighter
as a buff.
for a long
Yeah,
time before he got promoted up to PIO.
yeah.
But buffing is essentially what in the basic levels is what we do. Um,
A lot of
and
times it's like filming stations, response videos. You see a fire truck out and about, snap a couple shots, you're fire buffing. It's
yeah,
like level one emergency photographer.
yeah, it is. It's level one, and a lot of the time, those are just folks who like that cool stuff, and there's no hate against those guys. I was
Absolutely.
one of those guys. I still am. I mean, I work in
Yeah.
fire and EMS, and I love seeing shit go down the road.
Yeah, I consider myself a more professional photographer at times, but there are times when I'm just focused on, oh, that looks cool. That's a nice
You feel
looking
like a
rig.
little kid. You see a rig scream by you going code 3 or a bunch of cops or a SWAT truck or an ambulance.
Yeah.
You get a little kiddish again. Like, I'm
Yeah.
not gonna lie. I'm almost 24 years old and I still think get a little kiddish.
I think buffing is an element of what we do. So,
Yeah.
but
Like I said, the basic levels is what we
yeah.
do. And the Canon Rebel series, they are a great camera. They're great for beginners. A lot of the times too, a lot of folks that I've run into that don't do this to the level that we do or the level that Mike Fila does or the on-scene TV guys don't have the formal photography or videography experience or training that we do. Like I learned under Dr. Raymond Elstad, and I
That
learned
is my
under Mike
college
Fila,
major.
and I learned under and Anthony Carrasco, who is now a San Diego police officer.
Love
Uh,
Anthony.
yeah, he is. I was texting him the other day. I was like, "Hey, how are you, dude? How's it going?" He goes, "Dude, it's so much fun."
That's good. That's
He
good.
goes, "But I hate paperwork."
Yeah.
But honestly, and then for microphones, I'll tell it right now when I'm recording, I use Rode products. I love Rode products. I've had great experiences with them, and I couldn't ask for more from them.
Yeah, I use a DD mic on my rig. I guess we could talk about because I haven't explained what I do. Since
I,
I'm
as far as we're breaking it down, I do still photography. I do
Yep.
some video. I have helped Max with some video when we need a long range shot that Max's lens can't really reach, or we need a separate angle. But I mainly do still photography just because that's what my eye is, especially in photography and videography. You find your niche in what your eye is. Like for
Yep.
me, my eye is the artsy fartsy type of shots. Like the rig looks super badass. I get a different angle, snap a shot. I see a guy that's got just this perfect look on his face or is about to do something cool. I get that shot and it's captured in a singular video. Max, and I'll let him go into this a little bit more, he gets that shot as it's happening and records it versus getting that one single frame of it.
Yeah, I'd say now, or at least when I started out, I was almost 100% video. I think now it's probably more at like a 60-40 split because I'm doing more and more photo stuff. And again, that's one of those things where your experience as a photographer evolves, and it's totally okay to change stuff. I do it all the time.
Yeah.
Um,
Started getting into video. I used to strictly be still photos.
Yeah, that's totally fine. Obviously, do what you enjoy doing. I'm having more fun with photo stuff, so I'm branching more into photo, but still my rig is primarily meant for video. It's basically a video rig. I'm using a Sony mirrorless body, but I've built it out to a proper like almost cinema cam style rig. There's photos on my
What Sony do
Instagram.
you?
What?
What model of Sony do you have?
It's an A6400. So actually what's considered a mid-range to entry-level camera. It's not a professional camera.
I
Um,
figured you had like the A7 III or the A9.
no, I'm looking at getting one of those, but I'm also thinking about like an FX3. Um, yeah, they just came out with the FX30, which is like the little brother to the FX3,
It's
but
like the R10 is to the R6 and the R5.
yeah, it's a video first mirrorless body, and it's insane looking. But I have, if you go to my Instagram and go to the highlights at the top of the profile, I have a BTS one, and I have a couple pictures and videos of my rig. If you have not seen my camera rig before,
Didn't I get a couple of pictures of you where you could make out your rig pretty well at some of the stuff we were doing?
yeah, it was more silhouette-y.
Well, there was the
Um,
one from the back at the
yeah,
last training. Then there was the one I think one or two I got at you at that DUI. Did I send you
That's
those?
yeah, there's a couple. Yeah. Those are decent. But if for just a basic look, go to my Instagram, go to the BTS thing and look there. But primarily what is on my rig is the camera and the lens. It's on base plates and rails, so I can put together and change a lot of configurations because I do more than just emergency photography, so I have a little bit of flexibility in the use case of my camera. And I've designed this specifically with the idea of I have my rig and I am using it all day, not needing to change anything. That is a philosophy that I use. So on that rig is a super big battery, and I can get 4 to 6 hours of runtime depending on what I'm doing and what accessories I'm using. I have a super big SD card in there. Obviously, it's important just to have storage. I think that Brian can agree with that as well. But
You're
I
in
have
the 256s or the 500s?
using a 256.
That's what I usually run. I can get 8 or 9,000 photos on just one of those
Yeah,
things.
4K video likes to take its toll. But I have a super
Yeah,
big V-mount battery for those camera nerds that know what that means. It's literally probably very large. It's very large battery. I can get a lot of runtime off of that. On top of the camera, I have a top handle. I have an external monitor because again, I do a lot of video first, so a viewfinder's not that useful. And I have a very large, basically it turns a little tiny like 3-inch camera screen all the way up to like a 5 or 6 inch screen, I think, which is a huge difference. And then I have a shotgun mic, and I have a light on it for nighttime. So I built that rig out specifically for my needs. Again, some people might not need everything on it. Some people might need more. There's stuff that I want to do to that rig to kind of change it here and there. Thinking about like a matte box or a follow focus, also a shoulder rig. Again, look at your needs, find out what you want to do. Um, but if you look at Brian and I, our equipment when it comes to camera stuff is entirely different. You pretty much have just the body and the lens, and I have a full-on rig.
yeah, like I can drop a mic on there or a Loom Cube on mine, but I have them. I just I don't really use them that often. And at March Mayhem, you guys will see stuff on our Instagrams. We'll take pictures of each other, and you guys will see those pop up. Um, because a lot of times we're not ever in front of the cameras, even in our own lives. We're not in
Mhm.
front of the cameras very often because we know how we're to take pictures, so we do it.
Yeah, we're
Um,
always the ones taking the pictures.
so we'll take pictures of each other at Mayhem, and you guys will see that get posted up on our social medias. We'll take pictures with Gino. You guys will finally see what he looks like. Um,
We have a couple pictures and stuff here and there.
I don't have
If
any pictures like with Gino though. Like I have a picture of him on there.
that's fair.
I mean, we have a picture of like just his nose from that one you took of me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but like you guys will get to see kind of from our point of view, and I might start posting. I found some old helmet cam video from just some basic stuff I was doing.
Yeah.
That I might post up in like a reel format. I just was like, oh, this is cool.
Mhm.
So I'll try to do that. Um, just so you guys can see kind of from my perspective what I'm looking at while I'm shooting.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm
I
definitely
have
gonna put a
GoPros out
GoPro.
there.
Yep.
Like
That's
it's gonna
another all around as a photographer. If you're doing up close stuff, I'm gonna say as like a news gatherer or as an incident photographer, a GoPro might not be super useful. Um, but I
I'm a scuba
use
diver. They're
them.
great for scuba diving.
Yeah, so recently I've gone on incidents and I've actually worn them, kind of like a body cam and get that first person view. When I get my helmet, gonna do obviously like the helmet cam style just for some higher quality. I've put them on my car before.
Hey, when you said you were out with a dive team the other day, and you said you had your GoPros out, did you give them your GoPros
Yep,
and they took them down?
that's where I was getting. Yeah, so I have footage.
That's awesome.
I was with the Boise Fire dive team a couple days ago or yesterday. And they were doing every month they go out and do some specific dive qualifications and training and stuff. So we were out at Quinn's Pond, which for the Boise folks, you know, pretty decent sized pond. And there was still some ice there, so they were doing ice break training, and cold water recovery and dive. So again, in this situation where not every emergency photographer is going to be in that situation, but I had GoPros and some of that we're talking about this and that. I'm like, hey, I have some GoPros. They're like, sweet, hey, can we wear them out there? Can we bring them with? Sure, why not? So obviously, GoPros, they're little rugged camera bricks. So gave them to a
Everyone having
couple of the
that too is a
divers.
great, and you providing that footage is great resources for
Yep.
new divers that are joining their team. Because being a public safety, I'm in the process of getting my rescue diver and my public safety diver certifications from Patty, and it's not easy.
Yeah.
In the slides, there's a lot of homework you have to do on that. So I've taken a break to focus on medic school. That's, as you can tell, I look fucking exhausted. Medic school is why. And in a later episode, we might have my instructor on to talk about education and knowing getting CPR certified, even as a photographer, would be a smart idea.
Yeah. I
That's
just
still
as a regular person, I think it's smart as an
there's
everyday
actually a
human.
bill that he is sponsoring, and a bunch of other providers are sponsoring, that is before the state senate in Colorado right now, where I live, to make CPR and first aid required for all high school students to graduate in the state of Colorado.
I think that's smart.
I think it's smart, but I think it's also a really two-edged sword because teachers are already underpaid and overworked.
Yeah.
Uh, so you would have to be you have to either bring in a company for that funded by the state and the school district, or get teachers some more help.
Yeah. I think it's a good skill. But yeah,
It's a
like,
great skill to have.
yeah.
Even just to be able to do compressions before we show up.
Yep.
Like, I can tell you, I'm a certified AHA CPR instructor. Um, compressions, early compressions and defibrillation, even if you don't have an AED on you, a lot of these bigger places have them now or have multiple.
Yep.
Your office buildings, for those of you that work in at companies that are in office buildings or in buildings in general, they will most likely have one. They are great to have, just in general.
Yeah.
And it's a great skill to be able to know how to do, because what you see on TV and movies is not good CPR. And I will tell you this. You will hear this in a CPR class if you take one. If you hear ribs breaking, do not stop compressions. It is
That's
okay. You're
normal-ish.
just cracking them. No, it's completely normal.
Yeah.
If you hear a crack right in the midline, you might want to stop, because that's their
Yeah.
sternum and you don't want to break that, because then you might cause some damage to their lungs or their cardiac tissue. Oh, listen to me. I'm going into medic mode. Fuck, sorry. Guys, if I ever go into medic mode on here, Max or any of our guests is fully authorized to tell me to shut the fuck up and come back down to earth for a second.
Yeah.
We really should have, like, if we're doing video, we should really have like hey, we say fuck a lot right before this starts.
We'll have a
Not
live
even
sensor
we.
and a live
Brian
count.
says fuck a lot.
Yeah. But going back to what we were talking with the dive and stuff, obviously I was on the shore. My lens can only go so far, but for some of those divers that are in like the Mustang suits and stuff, to be able to go out there and hold a GoPro and get close up, that is some value in training points right there, and it's just a different angle. And then some of the divers, like we put a head strap on, some of the guys held them when they're going under the ice and going around. That's just an extra angle. So obviously, if you're just kind of on the sidelines as an emergency photographer, I don't think GoPros are super useful, but you can obviously use them on you to get first person view and that kind of stuff. But again, just figure out what you want to shoot and look at camera options. Doesn't need to be super big, doesn't need to be super fancy. Just find what works for you.
Nikon.
Yeah, as long as it's not Nikon. As
And
far as
nothing against
lenses,
Nikon. I'm sure they make a great product, but
I've just never been impressed by them.
I've never been impressed by them either. There are some photographers out there who have been published multiple times in some very reputable magazines and journals who only use Nikons.
Yeah.
Professionally, we're just talking shit, and I'm telling this as a disclaimer. We're just talking shit because we like to talk shit. Because we like, but there is nothing against Nikon as a professional organization or as their product. I'm sure they make a phenomenal product. I just prefer Canon.
Yeah, and I just prefer Sony. On the topic of glass, I am going to say probably should go with a zoom lens. Primes are not super useful in the emergency world because a lot of times there are situations where you can't move and it's up to the lens to get that. If you're up to the tape, obviously you can't cross it. Don't cross the tape. There's a lot of times where you can't get any closer. So obviously having the flexibility in zoom is good. You have a bunch of different lenses. and I kind of
I have a
have
lot.
one that's my like Swiss Army knife. It may not be the absolute best at
What's your
that particular.
magnification on your lens?
Mine is it's an 18 to 135, but I have a micro four thirds sensor, so
As
it's
far as that one
more.
though, for filming, those 18 and 135s, even the Sigmas or the Canon or just the Sony brands,
Yeah,
it's a phenomenal lens as far as range for close in and
yeah,
even to an extent some distance shooting.
yeah. I do want to get something that is farther, closer to maybe the 200 millimeter range.
If you're gonna go
Um,
200 or bigger, go with Sigma. I'm
oh,
serious.
I want to.
There's I just bought their 60 to 600. It's an f4.5, so it's not going to be super great
Yeah,
as far as letting light in. And we say f, folks, that is f-stop. That is
yeah.
allowing the amount of light into the sensors. So the lower the number, the better. Um,
Which
so
also, if you know nothing about cameras, YouTube is a fantastic resource. Um, look up different cameras, look up different reviews, look up like crash courses and beginner guides to stuff. That there is nothing that says you can't learn from like a sports photographer about emergency photography. Just
or go take a class.
yeah,
I got into photography when I was learning under Raymond Elstad. I literally was forced to take photography as an elective because I needed an elective and that was something that was open. And I didn't. I hated photography at the time, and
yeah.
now 5 years later,
Just yeah, find something, get the knowledge when it comes to camera stuff. Just practice shooting, I'd say. Um,
find what you're good at. Some of you
and
listening
find
might
what
be
you enjoy.
emergency photographers. Some of you guys might be great sports photographers. Some of you might be phenomenal nature photographers. You might go to an emergency scene and get shit photos and be like, oh, I suck at this. I'm never going to be a good photographer. And you might go out into the woods and get the most beautiful photo of an elk or a deer or a fox or something because that's your niche. That's what your eye is for.
Yeah.
That's what your mind's eye is for.
Find what you enjoy and practice. Just get after it.
Do what you love what you do.
I think cameras are probably the most flexible point as far as gear for what we do. Because a lot of that is opinion based and what works for individual people. I think it's more of the emergency side where it's a little more strict, but yeah,
Yeah, I mean, as far as that is concerned, sorry, I'm putting my phone right here, so if something buzzes, I can look at it. As far as gear is concerned, that's pretty much all I got.
yeah.
Um, editing softwares, that's another big gear thing. I would recommend Adobe products.
Yep, I use Premiere. I use the full Creative Cloud suite. It's good. Yeah, it's a little expensive, but
It's
it's
worth it.
it's good. DaVinci Resolve is another product that's coming out more and more. Resolve is pretty good. I've messed around with it. It's free and it is a pro level software that you can get for free.
Is it?
Yeah. That's one of the biggest selling points. It's a very robust software. For me, I'm just used to Premiere. And the other thing is you have the full Creative Cloud ecosystem. So I can edit audio in Audition, send that as a live track to Premiere. Whatever I edit in Audition will be reflected live in Premiere. I can send stuff to After Effects and do comps and that kind of stuff, send it back into Premiere without getting super technical. It's just a good ecosystem that works together because it's all made by Adobe. Um, but yeah,
And
I have a laptop if you have one. I when I'm staging a lot of times and I'm intentionally going out to shoot, occasionally I'll bring my laptop with me so I can edit stuff and feed it on the spot without
if
having
it's
to run
something to
home.
do, you can watch
Yeah,
movies, you can stream stuff on it without killing your phone battery.
yeah. I guess another topic maybe talk about vehicle stuff.
Nah,
Um,
vehicles, it's so subjective. We would
yeah.
never.
Well, we'll probably
I mean,
touch on that later, or if I end up building out, we can talk about that on an
and once I
episode.
built out my
So
truck and it's completely done.
yeah.
And I mean, with that, I
Be
don't have anything
smart
else.
about it.
Do you have anything else?
I don't think so. Just do your research, find what you want to do. When it comes to safety stuff, that's kind of what we have talked about more. Um, because there's just good products to have. Um, get reflective stuff if you're shooting at night, ANSI class 3 vests. If you're around that type of stuff and you need it, get a good helmet. Other than that, just find what works for you. As much of a cop out as that feels like to say the final outcome of tonight is find what works for you. That's how we are. Obviously, between Brian and I, we have some similarities, we have some differences when it comes to gear. It's just what works for us. So I think that's pretty much it. That's it for gear, guys. So thanks everyone for tuning in. We're starting to see
have a
some
great
more
night, guys.
reviews.
Uh-huh.
Really psyched about that. All of those of you that have left positive reviews, appreciate that. Keep enjoying the show. Keep sharing it out. This has been Frames and Flames. I'm Max. That's Brian.
Ryan,
We'll see y'all later.
go back to your corner, Max.
Oh, man. The Frames and Flames podcast is produced in collaboration between 1076 Media and 760 Fire Photo. For more information on the show and to find out about future guests and episodes, please check out our social media at TEN76 Media and 760 Fire Photo. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.